It's so preposterous to talk about zero emissions. It's so preposterous to ignore the whole issue of nanoparticles. So it's totally naive to look at Sweden or look at Switzerland, look at Germany and say, oh, that's what we're going to get here. If your leadership became a little bit more creative and less subservient to the lobbyists of the incinerator industry.
This is antiquated technology. So if the Premier wants to go somewhere innovative, this is the way to go. Zero waste is the way to go.
There is no magic machine to solve the waste problem. It's got to be a strategy. It's organization. It's education. It's leadership.
Dr. Connett, one of the things you've sort of attacked the Premier for listening to the PR spin from some of these corporations, but there's also studies, scientists, professors that are saying this stuff is safe. So, you know, why is it that he should believe what you're saying rather than what these other people are saying?
Well, I think, first of all, follow the money. I mean, how many of these reports that endorse incineration are coming from people that are not being paid by the incinerator industry? I have yet to sit on a public platform with a proponent of incineration that is not being paid to be sitting on that platform. The people on the other side here are people, ordinary citizens, or like Barbara or myself, who do this pro bono. So I think that's the first clue as to whether you rely on the information or not. Who's making money out of this? The second is the quality of the information. It's so preposterous to talk about zero emissions. It's so preposterous to ignore the whole issue of nanoparticles. It's so preposterous to talk about creating jobs when in fact the number of jobs that you create with an incinerator is minuscule compared to the jobs that you create with the alternatives. Take Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia, which is not perceived as the leading environmental province of Canada, overtook Ontario, became the first province in Canada to get 50% diversion. They did it in 5 years, and in the process they created 3,000 jobs. Not a sniveling little 100 jobs in the proposed incinerator, but 3,000 jobs. 1,000 jobs in the collection and treatment of the materials, and another 2,000 jobs in the industries that use those secondary materials. Look at New Zealand. Over 50% of the municipalities in New Zealand have declared zero waste. Look at Nova Scotia. Look at California. California passed a law that they had to get 50% diversion by 2000. Hundreds, over 300 communities did that. 50% diversion by 2000, 64% diversion by 2004. Goal for 2010, 75%. And the goal for 2020 is zero waste. You've got to look to the young places, look to the people that are in the 21st century, not the people that are bogged down in the 19th century. You need three things to get to zero waste. You need industrial responsibility at the front end of the problem, you need community responsibility at the back end of the problem, and we need good leadership. Now, we are getting good examples of industrial responsibility at the front end. The beer industry here in Ontario leads the world. Been using reusable glass bottles for over 50 years. You're recovering 98% of those bottles. It's saving 11 cents per serving. It's created 2,000 jobs in the cleaning and collection of those things. It cost the municipality nothing. That is zero waste. But we need good leadership, which clearly you don't have here, unfortunately, at the moment, to bring community responsibility and industrial responsibility together. And in practical terms, the way you bring community responsibility and industrial responsibility together is with residual screening and research facility. With residual screening, you don't let the residuals go straight to the landfill. It goes to a building. The dirty organic fraction is stabilized and goes before it's landfilled. That's happening in Nova Scotia. And they pull out more recyclables, more toxics. What we need to add to that is a research facility where you involve your university professors and students who are interested in sustainability, industrial design, advertising, and so on, and they study this non-recyclable fraction and recommend to industry a better way of making it. If the toothbrush ends up at the residual screening, then what's a better design of a toothbrush or a shoelace or so on? Your solution is to burn it. This is short-sighted, backward. If you add up all the facilities that we're talking about with community responsibility and the residual screening, if you add up the cost of materials recovery facility, composting facility, reuse and repair, deconstruction, local community initiatives for waste reduction, like using refillable shampoo bottles. You take your old shampoo bottle to the shopping mall and get it filled up again, the co-op, whatever. if you look at those initiatives, if you look at the cost of the residual screening and research facility, the total cost is less than your incinerator. The total cost is less than your incinerator. You've created 10 times more jobs. You, instead of one big black box, you've created hundreds of little green boxes. There's so much more that you can get for your money if your leadership became a little bit more creative and less subservient to the lobbyists of the incinerator industry.
You know, I've been to Sweden and I've seen their state-of-the-art waste-to-energy systems. They've been at it for decades. They still have dioxins being emitted from those plants, still, after years and years and years of refining the technology. So I think we have to look carefully at what's been done in places like Europe where this technology has been used for years and years. It's still not perfect. It still emits dioxin, and that's a fact.
You have a huge problem here with a huge problem. And that is the assumption that because you can do this once in Sweden or in Germany on possibly a regular basis, the assumption is that with minimum of monitoring, you're going to do the same in Ontario. You know that the Ontario Ministry of the Environment has been gutted in terms of employees, in terms of resources. The Canadian regulations, as best I know, only require monitoring for dioxins once a year, and you use 3 6-hour tests and take an average. You're using 18 hours of data and extrapolating to 8,000 hours of operation, and the company gets a month's notice before you monitor. In Germany, they practically shoot you if you exceed their regulations. In Ontario, they stroke your hand. You know, there's no way, having invested $800 million, you don't think that the Ministry of the Environment is going to shut these things down. They will run until they drop. And so it's totally naive to look at Sweden or look at Switzerland, look at Germany and say, oh, that's what we're going to get here. Go to Brampton. That is the most crude Mickey Mouse bicycle shop I've ever seen. It even made Dick Gilbert wince when he had a look at it. You could hardly see across the tipping floor for the dust in that machine. But that is touted as a successful example of incineration in Ontario. Give me a break. That is Mickey Mouse equipment.
This is antiquated technology. So if the Premier wants to go somewhere innovative, this is the way to go. Zero waste is the way to go.
Gasification plants, if you read this, incinerators in disguise, have been closed in Germany. A new plant closed. A new plant closed in Australia because they couldn't meet emissions. Oh, yes, there must have been emissions if they couldn't meet the standards with the very new technology. The company lost a fortune on this. Mm-hmm. And we have in Halton Region, they are jumping up and down about, oh, if the border closes, we are going to have industrial, commercial, institutional waste. And what will we do then? Well, if they go to Husky Injection Molding Systems, husky.ca, and check out what they are doing, they have 94% waste reduction. And the jewel of it is they made $800,000 with their recycling. Now, what company wouldn't want that on their bottom line?
We all agree that we have to drastically reduce what goes into landfill. Now, what is the best strategy to do that? Not the best technology. You see, this is the mistake that's made all the time. If not incineration, Dr. Connett, what technology would you recommend? It accepts the major mistake. The major mistake is you mix everything together, you have waste. There is no magic machine to solve the waste problem. It's not technology. You apply elegant technologies once you've got down to clean materials or separated materials. Composting is a technology, but it has to be applied to a clean organic waste stream which is source separated.
There's more than just household waste to deal with here. There's commercial waste and industrial waste, and that is not being dealt with. And that has to be dealt with. The province needs to get serious about dealing with commercial waste.
For years and years and years, you made a huge mistake with the Blue Box program. It was a huge mistake. That was not your priority. Your priority was to get the clean organics out. What the cities need to do is to get the clean organics out, get them out of the city and compost them. Leave the city with the dry waste, which is non-threatening, non-stinky. You went the Blue Box program and left the clean organics in the residuals totally useless. Now you've caught up. So perhaps you can jump ahead of other countries now and be the first in Toronto to build the residual screening and research facility.